Hi everyone, today let's talk about Microsoft, the calendars, then we'll get into the charts, then we'll look at my results for the day and my thoughts going into tomorrow's session. If you like trading stocks and options and making money, definitely like and subscribe. I make videos like this every single day that the markets are open as well as Sundays, so make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Welcome to the Portfolio Bulletin. Let's get started. So Microsoft has been rallying and we've been covering it on the channel, but they are now making new all-time highs on a closing basis. We talked about that potentially happening, and sure enough, it's happening now. And really, it's on the back of more AI excitement. The company that came out with ChatGPT announced another new open AI. They said it's GPT-4 Large, which is going to be exclusive to Microsoft, is going to make hopefully a bunch of money. Microsoft invested $13 billion. Of course, we're still waiting to see how this is going to generate returns. That could be interesting, and it does remain to be seen. It is also worth mentioning Datadog did have a massive day, and that helped Amazon shares go up as well, and that's another data center style company that helps with the infrastructure of Azure, as well as Amazon Web Services. Looking at the economic calendar, there was nothing really on for today. I did want to highlight that the 3-year note auction did come in just under their previous read, which is interesting. That's pretty bullish for equities. And then looking at tomorrow, we do have FedPal supposedly speaking here at 9:15. I think that's a slight change from yesterday. Could be interesting. And then 10-year note auction, previous read at 4.6. And it'll be interesting to see where that comes in tomorrow. Moving over to the earnings calendar, Gilead beat on the top and bottom line. Datadog, we were just talking about that. Pretty small company, but beat on the top and bottom line. eBay, right in line with expectations, beat slightly on earnings. And then for tomorrow, don't forget we got Disney and Warner Brothers, fairly interesting, and MGM. Moving over to Max Payne, you can see top of the puts now at 436. So that gives you about 75 cents of more upside potentially for tomorrow. Max Payne still at 424. Total options, not a ton here, but we are really struggling to find upside in my opinion. And we'll continue to take a look at that on the charts. Everything still looks bullish, but you can see we're running out of runway. Moving over to the S&Ps on the hourly and the daily, you can see we were slightly bullish, 0.28% on the day, nothing crazy. We did get above that initial trend line, the longer term one sitting around that 4,400 level. I continue to watch that. I do think it's going to be interesting. I have a level here on the SPY as well around that 4,400 area. We did just barely get above my horizontal support and trend. You really need both of those to hold and then push to that 40. And then we'll see if we can hold from there. But right now, this is still looking like a fade. We are running out of strength. You can see we topped out on Thursday and Friday of last week. We went sideways on Monday. Slight bullish day here, but the momentum is fading. That is for sure. On the hourly chart. On the daily, we did get one more step up, but this is pretty extended. Wouldn't shock me if we got a touch of that 4,400, but I would expect that to be just about the end of this rally, at least in the short term. Moving over to the NASDAQ, very different thesis here. Big up day, almost 1%. Pushed through all of those levels right to the next resistance at that 72.85 level. I wasn't really trading early in the session due to work, so I wasn't able to capture this rally, and by the time I looked at the markets, we were already at this level. It happened very quickly. You can see that here on the hourly chart. First candle of the day, that 9 o'clock candle, and we were already basically topped out for the day. Then we were doing some choppy motion. Didn't look like we were going to get much of a continuation. Doesn't mean that we can't continue higher, but just like on the SPY, we are starting to get extended, and you can see on the hourly chart, RSI fading here once again, but it is worth noting, let's go ahead and zoom here on the daily chart. We are above this trend line, which is interesting. We have not been above that trend line before, not since this downtrend started anyway. And it does look like we're kind of putting in a double top now from the high from that 12 October. We didn't quite get to the high from that wick, so we could absolutely get up there, test that level. Next level for me to the upside is 376.45. That is a massive level. You can see that's the consolidation level going back to September. Doesn't mean we can't get up to that 378.77 level, certainly possible as well, but it does seem to me that this is pretty much done, at least in the short term. I also felt that way yesterday, so the NASDAQ could absolutely continue to go higher, especially if we have Microsoft and AI continuing to drive it higher. But this is a super aggressive move. We've had no pullbacks so far, and eventually we will get some kind of pullback. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow. Russell basically went sideways, slightly negative on the day. Dow slightly positive on the day, but really just up to those previous highs. Again, momentum on both of these on the 4-hour chart continues to fade. Probably just needed one more day potentially to roll over. For the IWM, watching 170.35 up to 172.60. If we can get above that level, might be worth trading again. Dow watching 339.11 and 343.23. Moving over to Apple and Tesla. Apple with another really big bullish day coming off of that support. 178.58 held, rallied right to the next one, 182.37, touched that level and then paused. Very similar move to what we saw here on 11 October. Touched that level. Now we're at a double top potentially. We've tested the level. If it's going to hold, should really do it now. Otherwise, we're going to be establishing a higher high, and that would be an actual change of trend potentially. We still have a low, lower low, but now if we have a high, higher high, then you would expect some buyers to come in once we eventually get that pullback. So far, everything still looks okay on Apple. Again, you want to see it get above resistance and then trade to the next level. Tesla, slightly bullish day, 2%, right in the same range. We didn't get above the highs from Monday, where we did get a pretty clear rejection from that 225 area. When it comes to Tesla, though, I do trade these wider bands because there's a lot of chop, and this volatility can get a little bit aggressive, so I would want to see it come down, test that 21 EMA, hold that level, and then rally up to 232.57. Right now, it's kind of in no man's land for me. Moving over to NVIDIA and Microsoft, since we're talking about AI and that kind of stuff once again, let's go ahead and go to the daily chart on Microsoft so you can see that closing basis new high, gapped up and held at 360.53, which is slightly above the closing high from 18 July. Massive spike. Again, this could be a double top. Certainly interesting, but with all of the catalysts and Microsoft earnings being pretty good, it would not surprise me if this did get into full price discovery. Certainly possible on Microsoft. NVIDIA, not quite there, did show some bullishness, showing some rejection from these previous highs here at 461.76. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and put a level there. Does seem like the market is respecting that level. I think it could be an interesting one to watch. If we get above it here and then rally up to these previous highs around 475, that could be a nice move. Clearly some rejection at that level, and momentum is starting to fade as well. Just another factor to pay attention to. Microsoft, looking at momentum, still super bullish. RSI definitely overbought here. Last time we hit overbought conditions, we did fall quite a long ways, all the way to these lows down around 315, and then we ended up pulling back and overshooting that down to around 310 before we went all the way back to 360. Moving over to staples and discretionary. Staples continues to hold just above 68.91. Got that big 200 SMA sitting above there, probably acting as resistance. Might see this roll over a little bit tomorrow. Could be interesting. As long as that 21 EMA can hold, that's still going to be in good shape for me. Discretionaries also getting close to that 200 SMA. It looks like we touched it just barely here on the 4-hour chart. This has been straight up. You can see we are definitely overbought. We are getting higher prices with lower RSI reads. Typically not a good sign that this is going to continue on this pace. Obviously, this is super aggressive and nothing does this forever. The question is, when are we going to see a pullback? And the 200 could be a nice trigger for that. Moving over to breadth, we have gotten another day down in a row, which is interesting. We still have not filled the gap really on either of these charts. Got very close to touching the wick here on the 200 SMA. Might have touched it by the 100th, very, very close on that one, but not even close on the 50-day average. I would expect this to continue lower until we at least get the gap fill on the 50 down at that 40 level, which does make sense. We're starting to see breadth fade on this massive rally. It's been super aggressive. Not everything is going to participate in a rally like that. The question is, when are we going to get that rollover? It does seem like it's going to happen here fairly soon. Moving over to yields, we talked about the 3-year coming in a little bit under the previous read. 10-year still sitting on that 55 EMA. If this breaks down here, that could be a pretty bullish catalyst. That would give me some more triggers to get in a little bit more to the long side. 2-year yield, basically chopping sideways in this same zone. Still pretty well off of its highs here, so that's good to see as well. But longer term, I don't really feel like these are going anywhere quite yet. We're not going to see cuts until probably the end of next year, in my opinion. Moving over to the dollar, got a slightly bullish day once again, so 2 slightly bullish days in a row. Tested that 55 EMA as resistance, and it did hold, which is interesting. We're right at my 105.50 level. The question is, are we going to see that actual lower high setup? I do think that that's going to happen. That is what I'm looking for. The question is, where is it going to be the 9 EMA on the daily chart? All the way up at 106. Could it be that 144 here on the hourly chart at 105.93? That could also be resistance. Or maybe it just breaks down right from here. It does kind of look like we're establishing a slightly lower low from this already dip low. And then if we break down from here, that could be immediate. You still have the 55 EMA sitting at 105.25. That could be interesting. But overall, I am expecting this to pull back more. Moving over to bonds, J&K, another slightly bearish day. You still want to see some of these gaps fill, establish a higher low, and rally. We're not seeing that quite yet. We did get a step down on momentum just slightly on J&K. TLT gapped up and held. That was quite bullish. Interesting. We also got the cross on the 9 and 21 EMAs on the daily chart. That could be a trigger for people to be getting into this position. I still think we have a really solid base here between basically 82.75 all the way up to 88.50. You can see tons of volume coming in through this area, people locking in long-term yields with TLT, and TLT could be going higher over the longer term. But in the short term, you still got that 55 EMA acting as resistance at 89.43. Once we get above that level, you're basically in the clear all the way up to 96.50. And I would expect this move to be pretty aggressive, similar to what we saw here as we rolled down from that level to this base that we've established. Moving over to volatility, move index sold off a little bit, not doing much of anything here. Let's go ahead and take a longer term look at the VIX. Really not doing much either. We did get slightly below 1490, but this is not selling off nearly at the same pace as we saw here previously. We are still at the highs from this consolidation, and it could absolutely still hold here. Momentum was basically flat. If we get a slight update tomorrow, then you would expect momentum to start ticking towards that bullish direction, which could be an interesting indicator here on the VIX. Moving over to my accounts, I really did not participate in the moves today. Like I said, I was not watching the markets early in the session. I did end up rolling my calls out a little bit to give myself a little bit more opportunity. So now I'm out to 10 days from now, which seems a little aggressive, but now I have $8.30 credit. I did have to pay to make that move, which is always a little bit frustrating, but we'll see how that plays out now. I still have a ton of protection all the way down to 359, and because I didn't really participate, you can see I only made a few bucks on the day, which is fine. I do think we're going to see some cheaper prices. Doesn't mean that we can't go higher first, but eventually there will be a pullback and there will be an opportunity once again, and we're just not seeing that quite yet. Let me know down in the comment section what you think of Microsoft and AI. What is Microsoft's new high going to be once we start to get into full price discovery? Can it go to $400? That would be very interesting and very bullish for markets. Otherwise, like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video, and make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.